So I think this is one of the challenges in Indonesia, is ensuring our democracy consolidate, our economic development is quality growth is happening, and with that we will be able to play that role. So we do hope that with Indonesia's leadership, with ASEAN potentials to play a bigger role in the world, and us, the society, the civil society of Indonesia, helping to ensure our democracy consolidate, we will be seeing better roles of Indonesia and ASEAN in the world. And we do also hope that global polarizations that we have been witnessing in the past few years can be navigated in a strategic way by countries of ASEAN, including Indonesia. It is not easy. So it is a challenge, but I do think that great powers in Southeast Asia can be managed by ASEAN well, and that Indonesia will be able to play a bigger role on that. Allow me to end my opening remarks here, and I'm happy to hear comments and conversation from your side, and would love to also underline the importance of the Institute at Oxford, and hopefully it will provoke more attention to Southeast Asia after the South ASEAN Institute in Oxford being established. Thank you very much.
And why that is the case? Because often in many of our policy, we are not seriously incorporating the principles of equality in our development policy. And that was also my experience when I managed Jakarta. I told everyone that the value we are upholding is social justice, equal opportunity. For every head of department, you need to review your policy. Is the policy you are making is fulfilling that objective? And if not, then please revise and make sure it is fulfilling that objective.
Right.
So having that is key, because you are managing a large scale. Your leadership is not only about managing 20 people or 200 people or even 200,000, but in a country like Indonesia, it's 276 million people.
Yes.
So set the value, translate that into policy that mirror that value, and then let everyone on your bureaucracy, from the cabinets to head of regions to head of districts, to actually follow that principle. With that, I believe we can address some of the basic problems that we in Indonesia are facing.
Oh, that's very encouraging.
Writing some criteria, what kind of job.
Yeah.
So I decided to have 3 criteria for future jobs.
Yeah.
Which I don't know what yet, okay? But 1, it has to allow me to be intellectually growing.
Yes.
Okay.
Facts.
Number 2, it has to be financially good.
Of course.
Okay. I don't plan to be a conglomerate or anything, but I want to be independent.
Yeah, financially sustainable.
Financially sustainable.
Yeah.
Number 3, I want a job that create socially impactful.
Contribute.
So these 3 things.
Yeah.
Intellectually growing, financially good, socially impactful. So I thought going to be a university lecturer can meet that 3 criteria.
Yeah.
Or working for development agencies.
Okay.
That can also do that.
Development agencies, so like private sector.
In private sectors,
Yeah.
but also international aid, international development programs, things like that.
Okay.
UN agencies, so those kind of institutions. So I went to the US, I studied, and then after I finished my graduate programs, I work in Chicago. One of our biggest challenges in Jakarta is to ensure that the city provide equal opportunity for everyone.
equal access from clean water to business opportunity, equal access to all. And that is the challenge that we have. Disparities in the cities is quite wide. The gap between the have and the have-nots, the work and the work-nots, the knows and the knows-not is huge. And in a city of around 10 million people.
Let's talk a little bit about the divisiveness of politics in recent years. We see it still going on in America, awful divisiveness. We had a period here in Australia which seems to be easing a little bit. You have been very heavily criticised for a very divisive campaign when you ran for governorship and won, because you teamed up, you played the religion card, and it's kind of haunted you ever since. Do you regret it?
Let me put it this way. Whenever you have an election, and then you have competing candidates. Give you one example. If the candidates were different in terms of gender, one male and one female, then gender issue will dominate the conversation. It can be the divisive factors.
But you could have played the bigger man.
Let me continue that.
Finish, yeah.
And then if the candidates come from different ethnic groups, then ethnic issue can divide. And even sometimes when you have a referendum where there is no person, there is no faith involved, it can be divisive. Look at the Brexit, for example. It was divisive there. There is no person, there is no religion, there is no faith in there. So that is the same thing. When there is a Muslim candidate and a Christian candidate, then religious issue come into equations. Thank you, Professor Brian Schmidt, the ANU Vice Chancellor. Thank you for the very generous introduction. It is indeed a pleasure and honor for me to get back to Canberra. It's been a while since the last time I visited Canberra. Allow me to mention a few names here. First is Professor Greg Philly, your old friends, and great to see you here again. Professor Helen Sullivan, Dean of ANU College of Asia and the Pacific, as well as Ibu Eve Warburton.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Eve Warburton. I'm the Director of the Indonesia Institute, and I'm also a Research Fellow at the Department of Political and Social Change. And it's a huge honour and a pleasure to be moderating this Q&A session with Dr. Baswedan. Let me begin by, first of all, thanking you very much for an incredibly detailed, thorough and insightful and fascinating lecture on the mechanics of delivering programs at the Jakarta government level. For delivering the sorts of programs that you've outlined here tonight.
Sure, thank you, Eve. Yes, indeed. I mean, democracy is not only about election, but also about upholding values. And those values include, some of them, respect for freedom of expressions. And then two, transparency, for example, accountability. So some of those values, and we tried our best to uphold that. And to give you example, the freedom of expressions. Being in government in Jakarta is always noisy situations, whoever is the governor, because the social media engagement is very high. All media are in Jakarta, so small things could be trending topics if it happens in Jakarta. And it could attract attentions across Indonesia. And having that is a true benefit to us. What happened is we are able to get quick response from the general public about what we're doing. So we don't see this as a problem, but we are seeing this as an opportunity to get things better, to improve things by having public engagement on everything that we're doing. Number 3, education, employment. These are top 4 issues that our populations has always responding whenever there is a survey. And unfortunately, flood is never on the top list. Or fortunately, there is a global challenge that city like us is facing.
One, we're talking about climate change, and this is sort of issues across the globe. We're talking about how can we make our city more livable. And nowadays, when you see a flood, very, very fast, you'll get it dry immediately. Last year, there was a flood in Kemang, or beginning of this year, and within less than 6 hours, it's dry again. Why that is the case? Because the lurah, the camat, the wali kota were bringing in resources to pump the water, and their KPI is linked to their salary. Because Jakarta's employees making good money already. Sometimes I have this diagram in my mind, like an x-axis and a y-axis. The x-axis is right on the top, wrong at the bottom. That's values, right and wrong. And then the y-axis is good and bad, okay? Then you have 4 quadrants here. Good and bad is consequences. Right and wrong is values. In an ideal world, you want to make a decision that is right and good. Okay? Right in terms of values, good in terms of consequences. But sometimes in reality, we're facing situations you have to do the right things, but bad consequences. And sometimes you have to do good things, but wrong. What we have to avoid and don't do it is the 4th quadrant. Okay? It's wrong and it's bad. That's what you want to avoid. But the 3 quadrants, you as leaders, you have to be willing to exercise your authority to make decision on these 3 quarters. And then you have to explain later on. On one quadrant, which is good and right, you don't have to explain. Everyone will agree. Everyone will agree. But on the diagonal side, some people will agree, some people will disagree.
I'd now like to turn to another C40 Vice Chair of the Governor of Jakarta, Anies Baswedan. You also have 2 minutes, Governor.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good evening, good morning, everyone. The Honorable UN Secretary General, Mr. Antonio Guterres, fellow governors and mayors, ladies and gentlemen. It's a city government has a duty to provide livable living environment for its residents. And this include addressing climate change impact by making efforts to reduce cities' carbon emissions. Cities globally have done so by putting in place commitments and resources in establishing climate action plan and delivering actions in transportation strategies, building codes, promoting clean energy, and many, many more. So ladies and gentlemen, cities across the globe are taking bold actions. So is Jakarta. Jakarta commits to be a climate resilient city, and at the moment, Jakarta is moving from car-oriented development to transit-oriented development. And Jakarta is leading in sustainable transportation and mobility transportations, and we would like to continue even further. So in these occasions, ladies and gentlemen, allow me to propose the assistance that cities needs from the UN. The UN may have a big role for supporting cities across the globe. First of all, the UN could encourage countries to acknowledge the achievements of climate actions at the city level, and that need to be calculated as part of national determined contributions of climate actions. Secondly, within the United Nations capacity, the organizations could lend a hand to foster vertical and horizontal integrations at actions and at policy levels. Lastly, toward the COP26, the United Nations could also support countries to develop comprehensive architecture and financing structure to translate the benefit that are obtained by national government in the global forum to be executed at the local level. Thank you very much.
If I may interrupt, I just would like to say that we are fully on board with your suggestions. We'll do our best with our agencies and country teams to fully support your perspective and in our global advocacy with governments to do exactly what you ask us to do in relation to your own governments.
Thank you very much. Truly appreciate it.
Well, Governor Baswedan, you've already influenced the United Nations with 2 minutes. Imagine if you had 4 minutes.
Thank you.